Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. This is Drake for American Arms Channel, and today we're going to be taking a look at how to disassemble your Super Black Eagle 3, particularly how to remove the buttstock and remove the action spring and buffer from the action tube or action spring tube, whatever they call it. Didn't look in the manual for a part name, so I'm going to refer to it as that, and that's what it will be. To start, you want these tools in front of you. You'll need some sort of a drive socket or something that can take a drive socket. This is a 3/8. I recommend having at least a 3-inch extension. It's going to help you out. If you have a deep socket, 13 millimeter, you can see it right there, 13 millimeter is what you're going to need. If you have a deep socket one, it's going to help you out. You can get it done with a short socket like I've got here. Some form of a push pin. This is just a broken out firing pin from a different shotgun. Works for my purposes, but any sort of soft pin or non-marring pin, any sort of punch is going to work for you. Some form of a crescent wrench. I recommend adjustable. It doesn't matter the size. You're not going to need a lot of torque on it. Just something that you can get a grip on a bolt with. All right, we're going to move these to the side. Now, if you've not gotten to this point where you have just the assembled lower receiver, you're going to need to find out how to take down your shotgun and become familiar with field stripping before you move on to this point. If that's the case, go check out another video. Pretty easy. Not going to put that up on the channel because it's a basic function. You should be able to know that from your user's manual or watching some quick videos from Benelli or other owners. So, to start, we're going to take our punch and we're going to find, of course, our trigger housing pin, retaining pin. Don't know if that's the actual name. Again, just calling it something so you've got something to reference. It is bidirectional. There is no taper to it. You can push it from right to left, left to right. Doesn't matter. It is retained by a detent. You'll have to overcome that detent. Once you get it part of the way through, you'll be able to just pull it right out. Set that to the side. Don't lose it. Your trigger housing will automatically want to come out. What you're going to want to do is press the bolt release down and in, rotate down and out. Your trigger group housing and lifter all comes out as one piece. If you need to ease tension on the spring to access some other parts with Q-tips, whatever to clean, simply take the safety off, hold the hammer, pull the trigger, ease it forward. Simple, Sam. Easy to do. Now we're ready to get to accessing the parts we want to access. To start, you're going to want to come to the butt. This is the toe of the shotgun. Heel, toe. If you don't know that terminology, welcome to it. You're going to want to get used to that when talking about shotguns, especially, but rifles as well. Same components on a stock. This is the toe, because if I stand it up, or I'm looking at it, kind of looks like a foot, toe, heel. Grab the recoil pad by the toe and peel it down and away from the stock. It'll click out. Pretty simple. Goes back in the exact reverse. We'll show you that in a second. Now, we're left with a stock without a recoil pad. I'm going to recommend right now, if you're going to need to clean or anything like that, there is a small tab on the inside. You will feel it towards the heel. Push up and in, or excuse me, push up and pull out, and you'll be able to just rock out your Comtech cheek piece. Set that to the side. This also gives you a little bit smaller grasping surface so you can really get a hold of the stock if you have trouble and you don't have to grab onto the wrist or anything. Now, it's going to be a little bit hard for me to show with the camera angle the way it is, but I'm going to put my drive socket together here. Make sure it's going the right direction. You're not going to want to nest in your socket wrench if you have a short one. If you have a long one, do it. If not, you just want to set it on there. Inside the stock, and it's going to be very difficult for me to show this to you, but just because of camera lighting and camera position right now, but there is a nut coming through on a post bolt, and you're going to want to put your drive socket right over the top of that until it centers on it. And now you can just grab a hold of that stock with that Comtech cheek piece off and start giving her a spin. It will come off every once in a while. Just make sure you stay on there. Of course, this is hard for me to do with a camera. Much easier when you're doing it in person. You're able to watch what you're doing. At some point, you'll be able to actually click in your socket and just keep rotating it off. Now, it will want to spin freely eventually. It does have a plastic insert that holds retention on the bolt. So you can eventually just reach on in there and either spin it loose or grab it if it falls out. Your receiver will want to separate from your stock, as mine is doing, as you loosen that bolt. I just keep them pinned together as best as possible and keep on spinning that bolt off. This is the easiest way to retain it. All right, once it's loose, you can feel it drop. I can now pull the entire stock off, including the shims. Make sure you put those back together to the side. And now I can just shake my stock and my cast plate, my lock washer, and my locking bolt will come out as one. Again, smaller parts, don't lose them. They're all stainless steel or heavily blued, so they won't corrode very easily, but you'll want to make sure to take care of those if you do get the stock soaking wet. At this point, you have a clean shell that you can do with as you need. We're going to set this to the side. We don't need this for the moment until we reassemble. Now, here is your action spring tube, the post in which the stock is retained, and of course your receiver. Now this post setup has your threads on it and stop. You'll notice there are flats here. From the factory, this is going to be Loctited. However, this Loctite is not a permanent Loctite. It is one you can absolutely service on your own. You'll just need to break through it, and you shouldn't need any heat. You will not break the gun. You will not twist this tube off of the gun. Set your crescent wrench on it. If you figure out the correct size, go ahead and use that. If you've got an adjustable one, grab it. Grab the receiver with your left or right hand, whatever you are, left or right handed, use your dominant hand on the wrench. Position the wrench, and the easiest thing to do is going to be twist counter to each other. So I'm going to go up with my right hand, down with my left, and it will break. And now I can just spin. Once I get to a point where the tension has released, I can do this all by hand. Now you're going to want to push inward on this plug because the spring's going to want to come out. And there she be. This plug comes out. There may be a little bit of Loctite on it. Mine, it seemed like there was a little bit of grease and stuff on it. I didn't find a lot on it. I don't know if Benelli's doing that as standard or what. Maybe I was mistaken. Maybe it was just dried red grease. But it is tight. You're not going to break the tube, the receiver, or this by pulling it off. Now, if you're putting just gorilla force on it and it's not budging, probably need to send it to a gunsmith or back to Benelli to be serviced. It shouldn't be like that, however. This is a stainless steel component. It's a high quality piece. Don't damage your threads. It'll last. Pull your spring out. This is a Wolf Springs plus 25% power spring. It is several coils longer than the standard spring, and it has not taken a set, even though I've put several hundred rounds through it, including some Magnum loads. So good spring. Highly recommend this as an upgrade for your SBE 3. Now, tilt it down towards you. Out comes the buffer. This is also a stainless steel component. It is a multi-piece. You will not have to take this apart. Even if you do get it a little bit wet, just wipe it down, put a little bit of lubrication on it, not much at all, just a little bit, you'll be good to go. This does have a buffer function on the end. As you can see, I can squeeze that piece in. That's what gives you a little bit of buffer at the end of the bolt cycling and keeps the bolt from bouncing hard off the bottom of the receiver extension, plug, plate, whatever you want to call it, or the bolt hitting the back of the receiver and causing any serious damage beyond simple break-in wear. So, high quality component, as everything in this Benelli. You don't need to do much but wipe it down. Obviously, take a patch, run it through the tube. You'll want to get all of the unburnt powder, dirt, grit, residue, any sort of moisture that's accumulated. Any reason why you're servicing this, you want to get that all out. Now, Reassembly is the exact reverse of what I just showed you, and we'll go through that really quick. Take your tube plug, or excuse me, take your buffer, and I'm going to call it a buffer. It's kind of a spring guide / buffer. Works a lot like a hydraulic AR-15 buffer, kind of similar in function, not perfectly, but best way to think about it. It just sits in here and reciprocates back and forth, helping to guide the, of course I'm going to drop something, guide the tail end of the bolt. So, reassembly, just place that back in the tube with the spring. You don't have to put them together. They can go separately. Now, the toughest part about reassembly here is going to be getting this plug back in. Now, you can force your spring back in with your thumb and keep pushing it until you get to the end, plug it, push it. If that doesn't work for you, if it's too tough for you or you just can't seem to keep a hold of the spring, you've got a relief hole right here that vents out water as well as allows you to put some oil in there. If you don't want to disassemble the buffer tube for cleaning, I recommend cleaning out the buffer tube instead of just keep constantly dropping oil in there, but I digress. The easiest thing to do is just have a pin that matches that size, feed it in as far as you can, and you can just take something in there and put a pin in, and you'll see it'll hold the spring in. Now I've got less to compress, and now I can just put it in there, pull the pin once I get close, and I can do the same thing. I've gotten used to being able to just do this by hand, so after a couple times you should be able to do the same. As you can see, I can twist down. Once I reach significant resistance, I'm going to grab my wrench again. I'm going to put it on there, being careful not to scratch up the bottom of the tube. Once I start getting some more serious resistance, again, I'm going to put my hand on the receiver, hand on the wrench, keep twisting, it stops. I would give it a little touch more, about a 1/16 of a turn, if not a little bit less, so it's not much at all, and it'll snug right down. This isn't going anywhere. And if you really want to be sure, get it back on there and give it one more little tug to make sure she's on there, and it is. Reassembly of the buttstock is the exact reverse. We're going to take our shim plates, making sure that the hollow portion of the main plate that does not have a number on it, so this one is labeled DX and SX. Your manual will go over exactly how to shim your gun to fit you, and this is the retainer plate. You want to make sure the retainer plate is on the inside towards the receiver. Put that all the way up, make sure the pegs line up, and click in the receiver. It's just going to make it easier for you. You'll then take your buttstock, slip it on, and put it on the pegs. Now, here's where the part gets a little bit difficult, is knowing how to set up your cast and remembering which way you set up your cast. When you're looking at it, if you see CSX, that means we're going to cast high into the left for left-handed shooter. If I flip the other way around and we see CDX, we're going to cast high into the right for a right-handed shooter. Now if I flip it the other way and we're looking at ZDX, we're looking at dropping it low into the to the right for right-handed shooter with long length of pole, etc., with a lot of cast needed. And of course, the reverse of that would be for a left-handed shooter with the same situation. So for me, I need to use ZDX. I'm going to put that in here, and this is where I'm going to take it off camera. You're not going to be able to see in here. There are two retaining slots on the plate itself. You're going to want to force that down on. It'll stay. You'll then want to take your crush / retention washer, and here's where having tiny fingers helps, but you can get it done, or some pair of tweezers. Drop that on to the post as well. Then take your retaining nut, and the easiest thing to do is going to be just drop that in your socket. Put it down onto the post, if I can see what I'm doing here. And you're gonna struggle with this just like I do. If you're not looking directly down in the stock, it's going to be a little bit of a challenge for you. So there we go. Now we're gonna put that in there. And we're gonna make sure that we get lined up on the post. I wish I could show you this, but even with the proper lighting, getting a camera in there to see it is going to be a pain in the butt. Probably just using the extension itself would help out a lot, and not the whole drive socket, but I digress. You just want to keep spinning that. Just keep spinning that. Oh, got our socket set incorrectly. All right, we got tension. We'll just keep spinning. And eventually, I've got to pull it off camera again, you'll get enough tension that you can just start running the drive socket. If you're using a screwdriver to do this, you know, got a removable head screwdriver, that's fine too. Eventually, you're going to have to just take the socket, drop it down onto the nut, and just use the extension. Of course, this is only if you have a short socket like I do. And you're just going to keep tightening, keep tightening. The stock will line itself up as you tighten. Just hold it with your hand here on the receiver. And to give it a last good little snug fit, just grab here, give it about a quarter turn to 3/8 of a turn, pop that off, take out your lock washer, and I would just grab it and wiggle it. You're good to go. Put your Comtech cheek piece back on, make sure it's set, and then push in, straight in on the tab that retains it. Pull up on it, make sure it's not going anywhere. To replace your butt pad, rock it in from heel to toe. So stick the fat end in, push on it, and it will click in. You may have to pinch it around, give it a few taps, pull on it, make sure it's not going anywhere, and you're good to go. Trigger assembly. If you've relieved the hammer tension, make sure you cock that hammer, put the safety on. Press your bolt release, push up in, rock into position so that you can line up the two holes, make sure it's in there, and with finger pressure, you can get the pin started. It will take a little bit of pressure, make sure that trigger group is pressed all the way in, and it'll stop. You can take a pin or anything flat. I'm going to use the crescent wrench here just to get it going some more. And we can get it set flat here. You may need a rubber mallet, but that is no big deal. See, typically it'll be tight. You want tight. If you have to use something to tap it in or force it in flat, remember just use something non-marring so you don't ruin your finish. And put a bunch of gouges in your gun. So that's that. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope it was helpful for you. I know it ran a little bit long, but I want to make sure I was detailed as possible and showed you how to take care of that. As always, guys, God bless. Keep your powder dry. I'll see you in the next video.